Let's be clear, I don't do this stuff that often anymore. But a few people messaged me, they really, really wanted this, and it will give you a lot of views. So, let's talk about Don't Worry, Darling. Don't Worry, Darling is the second feature film directed by Olivia Wilde, who previously directed the comedy Booksmart in 2019. Now, I personally really loved Booksmart. It was one of my favorite films of that year. It's one of my favorite comedies, period. I think it's hilarious. It's worth noting, by the way, Caitlin Dever and Billy Lord, who were two of the funniest people in that movie, are currently in another film together at the moment, and they're very funny in that. So, go see that. It's good. And I want to mention a good film in this video. Now, when this film was first announced, I was actually pretty excited for it. It had a promising trailer, promising concept, mostly promising cast, and Olivia Wilde had proven her chops with Booksmart. I knew she could direct. And to see someone who's already proven himself a force to be reckoned with in that field on their first film pick such an ambitious-looking project, it excited me. It genuinely really excited me. When this film was first in its, start of its promotional run, I was excited to see it because it looked good. When I booked my ticket about a week ago to see this film opening night, I was excited to see it because I love shit shows. The drama leading up to this film's release, from the terrible interviews with Harry Styles, to the entire disaster that was the Venice Film Festival premiere, layer upon layer upon layer of disaster. The entire thing with Olivia Wilde and Shia LaBeouf and Miss Flo, I don't even know where that drama's at this point. And to top it all off, bad reviews. Really, really bad reviews. This was a disaster in the making. And I personally was very excited to see how that would turn out. And in a way, having seen it now, I'm almost glad that my expectations were lowered, because I'm gonna be upfront, the film's really bad. This movie follows Florence Pugh as the character of Alice, a 50s housewife who's living her normal suburban life in paradise with her husband when things start to seem a little off. Now, as expected, Florence Pugh is excellent in this film. She is incredible at this kind of character, and she's perfectly cast in a lead role. I think she does an excellent job, especially given the material she has to work with here. She gets a lot to do. She is faring the best from this film. She is the only person I think walks away from this one unscathed. It's worth noting that Olivia Wilde also delivers a pretty good performance as Alice's friend Bunny. It's nice of Olivia Wilde to do something well in this movie, considering her directing skills here, but we'll get onto that later. From an aesthetic standpoint, this is a very visually pleasing film. The cinematographer... Who the fuck? What's his name? Matthew Libatique does a fantastic job here. The cinematography is very slick, it's very well framed, it adds onto the intended tone of the film very well. It feels very, I wouldn't even say suffocating at points, but it's very delicate, and the way it's framed, the way the shots are composed, is very respectful to what the film is trying to do in those shots. It understands the content and tries to accompany it appropriately rather than overshadow it. The content's bad, so it overshadows it anyway, but that's not important. Watching this film and then learning after that Matthew Libatique has been the cinematographer on many of Darren Aronofsky's films. It is pronounced Aronofsky, you dumbass. Was not a surprise at all. Good for him for working on The Whale this year, which I'll be seeing next month. Nice of him to work on a film that might actually get award nominations. And the aesthetic goes a lot further than that. In terms of costume design, hair and makeup, the film is exquisite in those departments. This has some of my favorite production design of the year as well. Unfortunately, the compliments kind of stop there. We'll start with the thing everyone wants me to talk about. The acting. Fuck's sake. Olivia Wilde here is a much better actor than she is a director, because these actors did not get good direction. the women in the film fare off a lot better than the men. The only one that stands out in my mind, Kiki Lane doesn't do a great job here. She is very underutilized. Her performance, they did not get a good performance from her, but I am blaming the direction completely. Gemma Chan doesn't seem like she got enough direction. I felt like she was kind of subpar the whole film, and it didn't seem like she knew what to do with what she was given, so she just did her performance from robots again. For fuck's sake, Ben, it would have taken one simple Google search to realize you were wrong. The men are a lot worse. And the bigger their character in this film, the worse it is. A lot of these smaller male roles in this film feel very miscast. Every comedian in this movie should not be in this movie, especially Nick Kroll, who is so horribly out of place in this cast. He does not know what to do with his scenes. There's like one scene where these actors are allowed to try and be funny, and they're so lost with the material as is that it's like they didn't even recognize that there were jokes in the scene, which is infuriating. I was really disappointed with Chris Pine in this film. His performance is so unnatural, and it really doesn't help that he gets a lot of the worst writing. With how his dialogue is written in particular, and how he acts it, I felt like I was watching The Room. And I need you to know that's not an exaggeration, that's not an overstatement. This film, at times, especially during his scenes, reminded me of The Room, and Tommy Wiseau's performance in particular. And of course, there's Harry Styles. Here's the thing. Harry Styles was good in Dunkirk, but that's a movie where he had like 10 lines. There are no emotions shown in this film that feel genuine. It's nothing short of laughable, as evidenced by the fact that... Because here's the thing, I love shit shows, I love laughing at bad movies, you guys know that. So oftentimes if I say something like, oh, this was really funny, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because it's me. Not this film. My audience did not like it. I will say that now. My audience... I don't remember the last time I went to something on opening night and the audience so unanimously disliked it. But during Harry Styles' scenes in particular, there was a lot of stifled laughter. The guy cannot act angry to save his life. He cannot cry to save his life. His crying... There's a scene where he cries. And it got legitimate laughs from the audience. Not the intended effect, of course. He's really bad in this film. Even when he's not required to do any heavy acting, he somehow still screws it up. There are scenes where, like, it's focusing on other characters doing things, and then the camera, like, will whip past him, or he'll be in the background, and he just kind of gives up. He just goes doe-eyed, like, oh, am I on a movie set? It's like he forgets he's in a movie. He thinks he's just, like, backstage. I don't know. It's like he thinks he's making a music video, you know? I don't understand what... Well, I mean, I guess I understand, because he's not an actor. That much is evident. And of course, he was a later addition to the cast to replace Shia LaBeouf. But watching this film, seeing where the character went, seeing the material they gave him, by the end of it, all I could think was, wow, how much of a chokehold does Ryan Murphy have Evan Peters in that you couldn't have cast him instead? Genuinely, he would be better suited to the role. I have to wonder if Harry Styles just got the role because Olivia was like, who's the first person I can call who will say yes? Oh, I know, my boyfriend. The presentation of this film was actually a bit disappointing. Past the design of it, past the visuals of it. Because from a visual standpoint, this film is mostly a treat. I'm saying mostly, it doesn't always work, although that's never the fault of the visual artists. That's never the fault of the cinematographer. It is the fault of the content itself. There's no real care to the editing in this film. There are moments where it feels like they're trying to do something creative and have a bit more subtlety and depth to it, but the film refuses itself that subtlety. Everything feels like just that, an attempt, and the attempts never land. The way scenes are intercut between each other. There's a scene early on at Chris Pine's house where two different groups are having conversations, and we just keep cutting between them. And it really doesn't work as well as they think it does. There's a scene I don't want to spoil it because the actual content of the scene is so bizarre. But it's cutting between Florence Pugh having an absolute mental breakdown in a bathroom and Harry Styles and Chris Pine. If I don't say something, people are gonna think they kiss. It reminded me a lot of Queen and Slim. There's a scene in that film where we're cutting between a riot happening where a young black child is shot and the main two characters having sex in the car. It reminded me a bit of that. The musical score in this film is super intrusive, super obvious. It felt like the composer was sitting next to me for the entire film with a chart of emotion faces, pointing at whatever one I was supposed to feel at in whatever given scene was prodding me to look at it more. It took me out of the film constantly. It was so in your face. It was uninterpretable. That's the word I've been looking for all night to describe it. The film refused to let you have anything for yourself, and it was often used very inappropriately. The sound design in this film, my god, I did not think the sound design would be one of my biggest issues, but it really is. It's exaggerated at points to the point of parody. There's a scene early on, it's in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling it, but they don't show the full scene. Florence Pugh cracks an egg. She notices it's hollow. Like, she holds it up to the light, and she's like, and she cracks it in her hand. But the sounds are so exaggerated, and so she just keeps cracking more and more and more. And there's such exaggerated cracking sounds and, like, dropping sounds to the point where I was nearly tearing up with stifled laughter in the cinema. Because it was so early into the film, I hadn't clicked if anyone else was enjoying themselves yet. So I was like, I'm going to be respectful. This was a very busy screening, filled with people who didn't like the film. The script in this movie. Jesus Christ, it's a really bad script. My main descriptive words for the script are silly and obvious. The plot just kind of does what it wants and then forgets what it's already done for the sake of it. There are moments where things are treated like reveals, but it's information we already knew. There's moments with characters where we're clearly supposed to be feeling one thing, but there's previous information the film has given us that kind of ruins that. You can't get the intended emotion out of the scene because of what you already know. The film wants to tie such a convoluted web for the viewer to get entrapped in, but in doing so, it traps itself. It gets lost. It doesn't know what to do. There are quite a few gaping plot holes. And it's not even just like nitpicky stuff. It's like, wow, this was kind of the foundation of the entire plot and it doesn't make sense. Wow, this is the foundation of the entire last act and it doesn't make any sense. Wow, wow, wow. The plot twist in itself, it's kind of a double whammy. I predicted like half of the plot twist in the first 5 minutes. That's not even an exaggeration. I got like to the second scene of the film and I was like, oh, I getcha. I know what we're doing here. And they did it. And then they also did something else really stupid. And you know what, the basic concept of it, it's not even like you could do it well. I've seen things done similarly to it that were done well. But this film chose perhaps one of the stupidest ways it could have done it. The twist just does not hold together at all. It is an awful, awful reveal. The character work in this film is weak. Alice is only really as interesting as her performance. And the other characters I did not care at all. Could not care one bit about a single other person on screen at any given moment. The character of Margaret is also presented as like, you should be concerned for this person. Things aren't going well. But like, it's never even remotely developed past the most basic of exposition out there. There are also aspects to Margaret's character and writing that could be considered a little iffy. The dialogue in this film, I already mentioned a lot of it felt like I was watching The Room, and that doesn't just apply to Chris Pine. It is most of the film. There's a lot of info dumping, very annoyingly. No one really talks like a person ever. It's a very transparent and obvious film in its writing. And again, The Room. It's such an unsubtle movie. And that really is one of its biggest flaws. For a film that wants to be this big, mysterious, thought-provoking, like, conceptual movie, there's no subtlety. It's all very surface level, it's very thinly written, it's very obvious. Do I want to do a spoiler thing? I kinda do. I kinda want to talk spoilers. I kinda want to do it. This film's really stupid. So, the big twist of this movie is that it takes place in VR. I'm serious? Basically, towards the end of the movie, they reveal that Florence Pugh in real life worked at a hospital, and Harry Styles in real life was like, wow, I miss you, you work long shifts. Wow, I wish you were at home more, I never get to see you, oh no. And so he learns about the Victory Project online, which is this VR thing. The implication is that he drugs her, and then we see she's strapped down to a bed, he lies on the bed, they do like contact lens virtual scan things, and they're brought into the virtual world. This is a problem for a few reasons. For one thing, if you die in the virtual world, you die in real life. Harry Styles proves this by dying the... Oh, it's such a weird death. Early on in the movie, there's a scene where Harry Styles is eating out Florence Pugh, and like they're on a dinner table and she's back, and she just keeps pushing plates and glasses off the table with like freshly cooked meals on them. And it's very amusing. It reminded me of Fateful Findings with the laptops. But she's pushing all this stuff off and nothing's breaking at all. And then when she needs to be able to break something, she takes a glass of alcohol and smashes it into Harry Styles' head, which kills him instantly. There's a lot of blood too, a comical amount of blood, from a single head wound of a glass that smashed. Like, yeah, there was some force behind that, but that would not kill the man, Jesus Christ. The film, obviously, it ends on her escaping the VR, but Harry Styles is like the only person with her in the real world. So I'm a little confused as to how the hell she's getting out of the straps that she's in. She's strapped to a bed. All limbs. Throughout the first portion of the film, Florence Pugh is like seeing things she thinks are weird and like, that's weird. The egg thing happens and she's just fine after it for some reason. And while she's out on a bus, she sees a plane crash in the distance and she's like, oh, I gotta go help. She goes over and then she finds what is revealed later to be the exit. But if she's in VR, what was the plane crash? It wasn't one of the guys, because they leave VR. When they go to work, they leave VR for the whole day. So, like, what was that exactly? I don't believe the VR would have a full glitch of a plane crash. You can excuse the hallucinations Florence Pugh has with game glitches. Okay, not all of them. We'll get to that in a second. The entire foundation of the plot is based on her seeing this happening. But it's in VR, nothing happened. What was seen? I genuinely wish I understood. Margaret, I already mentioned her, played by Kiki Lane. Everyone thinks she's cray-cray, and after she realizes Alice also went out into the desert and saw things, he's like, wow, we gotta work together. And Alice is Florence Pugh's character. Alice is like, no, you sound ridiculous. And this leads Margaret to kill herself. But the way it happened is so weird to me. We're in a ballet class, and Florence Pugh looks in the mirror, and she sees Margaret, and she walks over to the mirror, and then Margaret starts bashing her head, and this is in the reflection, of course. Florence screams, and then she turns around and turns back around, and nothing was there. And she's like, oh no, and then she runs to Margaret's house, and sees her on the roof and then yells Margaret, and then Margaret looks at her and slits her throat and falls off the roof. It's like she was waiting on Florence. If she wanted an audience, I don't know why she did it during ballet class. Why did Florence Pugh get a psychic hallucination telling her that Kiki Lane was going to commit suicide? Oh yeah, and since we're on this character, I will mention the part of Kiki Lane's character that feels a little iffy to me. So around the end of the film, virtual reality twist is revealed. Florence Pugh kills Harry Styles with the strongest, most dangerous glass in the world. Olivia Wilde's character, Bunny, comes in and is like, what happened? And Florence Pugh explains everything to her. Olivia Wilde's like, yeah, actually, I know. You need to go, because people are going to try and kill you now. And she's like, wait, how did you know? You're a monster. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you let me think I was going crazy? And Olivia Wilde's like, well, you see, I'm here by choice. No one else, none of the other women are, but I'm here by choice. And I'm here for my kids. And Florence Pugh's like, what, they're not even real? And she's like, they're real to me, okay? Because I had miscarriages in real life, so I'm living out my life with my kids here. And then Florence Pugh gives her a look of, you are innocent in all this, and I understand your reasons. As if this doesn't make Bunny complicit in Margaret's suicide? Towards the end, the film just kind of forgets that even happened, and then just reveals more things in the weirdest and arguably most insensitive of ways regarding the actions faced towards its own characters. In conclusion, was this movie very good? No, it was very bad. I had a kind of good time, laughing, trying not to laugh rather. Someone on Twitter described this movie as a try not to laugh challenge, and about half an hour in, I realized how accurate that was. And my audience seemed to agree. They really didn't like it at all. This was an opening night audience, keep in mind. Keep in mind how many Harry Styles fans must have been there. It was a busy screening. Not a single good word. I went alone to this, and by the end of it, I was talking to people I didn't even know, because we all just kind of our audience just banded together against this really bad movie. Should you see it? Probably, because it's gonna be the only thing people talk about for the next 2 weeks. Check it out if you want, I guess. Some people will like this film. Harry Styles eats out Florence Pugh's vagina in this movie, and if you like both of those actors and find them attractive, then you will like this movie for that. And I'm giving Don't Worry Darling a 3 out of 10. That's the end of this video. Like, share, subscribe, check out my music available on all streaming services. I'm bad at outros, and I'll see you in whatever I do next. I don't know what the fuck that'll be.